my beautiful lovelies, it's Emmy. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be attempting to make a cheese. Well, I think technically it's not considered a cheese because we're not adding any rennet, we're not really going through a cheese making process, but it is called brown cheese or whey cheese. It's popular in Scandinavia and it goes by many names, and I'm going to be calling it Mysost today, which is the Norwegian word for whey cheese. Now this cheese is brown in color and it is made from whey, which is the liquidy, watery byproduct of cheese making. So if you've missed my mozzarella making video, please check that out and you'll see where this whey came from. So after making mozzarella, I had almost a gallon of liquidy whey, and I learned that I could make ricotta cheese and I could also make this kind of whey cheese. So my initial plan was to make ricotta cheese with the whey, but when I looked at the directions again, it said to make the ricotta soon after, within the few hours after collecting the whey from the mozzarella. And at this point I had waited a day. I had put it in a container and I had put it in my fridge. So I said, well, that might not work. So I decided to change things up a bit and went to plan B, and I decided to make this cheese, which is in this container. It's also called Mysost, and I tasted it way back in one of my Emmy Eats Norway videos. I will also put the link down below. Oh, I should mention I got this recipe from Cultures of Health, where I actually bought my mozzarella kit. So I'll also put that link down below. So let me walk you through the exact steps of how I got to this stage. So my mozzarella took a gallon of milk, and after I was done making the cheese, I had about 3/4 of a gallon left of whey. So I took that and I put it into a clean, large pot and brought it to a boil. So while it's boiling, some foam is going to appear and you're going to skim that off, and that helps to keep it from boiling over. So set that foam aside because we're going to reintroduce that back into the cheese later. So we're just going to boil this on medium-low heat for several hours and keep stirring it occasionally so it doesn't stick to the bottom. And then once it gets to about 75%, and for me this was about 2.5 or 3 hours, we're going to add our cream. Now, this recipe said for 2 gallons of whey to add 2 cups of milk, and since I had about a gallon, I put 1 cup of cream. But I think this might have been a little bit too much because I didn't have quite the full amount of whey, but you'll see more about that later. And then use a blender or an immersion blender and combine the cream and the whey together. Blend this up for about 1 minute. So we're going to continue to reduce it and keep stirring it. At this point, I transferred it into a non-stick pan because it was starting to stick to my pot, and I also wanted you to see what this looked like. So continue to stir it. It should start turning this kind of caramel color. Now it should stay this kind of ropey, caramelly texture, but mine started to separate, and I think this might have happened for a couple of reasons. I think I might have put too much cream relative to the amount of whey I had. It started to get kind of greasy at this point, so I'm like, oh no. But yours shouldn't turn out this way if you use the right amount of cream. And then you're going to pour it into a mold and cool everything down in some cool water. And then you're going to place that in the refrigerator, and then that's where I am right now. And I wrapped it with a little bit of plastic wrap because I wanted to make sure that it was nice and tight. And let's hope this comes out. You want to make sure you really butter your container before you put in the cheese. So that's what it looks like. It looks like it's pretty tightly in there. I'm going to use my offset spatula because it's nice and thin, and see if I can wedge it in there to get it out. Okay, so after much cajoling, I think I finally got my cheese out. Now, I can tell based on my manipulations here that this is not quite the right texture, but you'll see what I mean in a second. No, it's not supposed to be crumbly like this. It should be smooth and have this kind of caramel color, but it shouldn't be crumbling like this. I'm gonna have my brown cheese with some Norwegian bread, which in texture is a lot like a cracker, and it's full of sesame seeds, some rye, and some sunflower seeds as well. To serve this cheese, it's really helpful to have one of these, and this is a cheese plane. This is actually a Swedish one that I found at a thrift store years and years and years ago. I love this thing. I almost use it every single day. It's one of my favorite kitchen tools because it's satisfying to use and it yields really nice slices of cheese. So the way the cheese plane works is just like a wood plane. You just drag it over the surface and it should make a curl of cheese. There we go. That's not too bad. Now this, I can tell already by its texture, is way harder than the typical Mysost or brunost. So yeah, It does make some nice curls, but this should come off like a nice slice of cheese rather than these kind of chocolate curls. So, yeah. Alrighty, so let's give our brown whey cheese a taste. I'm gonna just try it plain by itself first. Itadakimasu. Now the taste is pretty similar to the Mysost that I tried in my Norway video years and years and years ago. That one was a little bit sweeter. This one's a little bit more salty. It was probably because of the amount of salt that I put in my mozzarella cheese. And it had a completely different texture. This texture is not correct. It's very, very crumbly, and it should be a little chewier and have a nice kind of sliceability to it rather than doing this. But the flavor is pretty similar. It's got a really pronounced nutty, caramelly sweetness to it. I think that's what's really strange for a lot of people when they first try this cheese, is how sweet the cheese is. And that's just the natural caramelized sugars that are found in the milk, or in this case, the whey. It has a very pleasant flavor. It's almost more dessert-like, but there's a good amount of salt in this as well. So the flavor is correct, but the texture is not. And I suspect that has to do with my cream ratios. At any rate, let's try it on some of this bread here. Let's try this by itself. As you just heard, super big, hard crunch, which is absolutely delightful. And then you've got this really great flavor to it. You've got the sunflower seeds that are nice and rich and kind of buttery. And then you've got some of the rye in there, which gives it kind of a little bit of an anisey flavor. Kind of similar to if you have pumpernickel bread or rye bread, very familiar kind of flavor there, but lots of nutty flavors. You've got the toasted sesame seeds in there and the sunflowers, absolutely delicious and hearty, and it feels healthy somehow. Now let's try it with the cheese. Here we go. That's actually really good. The cheese offers a little bit of sweetness, a little additional of salt, and that dairy kind of richness goes really, really well with all the grains and seeds that are in here. I think this would be really great with a little slice of cucumber, even though I'm not a huge fan of cucumber. That kind of succulent vegetal crunch along with the crunch of the cracker and the creaminess of a cheese, I think that would be delicious. Okay, let's do that again. I don't have any cucumbers right now. Cucumbers aren't really in season right now. We're still in the dead of winter here in New England, but in the summertime, or with a little cherry tomato, I think that would be delicious. This crisp bread is absolutely delicious. I got mine at Trader Joe's. This is Seeds and Grains crisp bread, Norwegian crackers. Delicious. First time I ever bought this before. Really like that. Alrighty, so there you have it. Brown whey cheese made from leftover whey from my mozzarella cheese making. Great way to use up leftover whey. It does take a long time, but fun little experiment of reducing whey into cheese. Alrighty, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you guys learned something. Let me know down in the comments if there's something you'd like to see me make, taste, or try, and I'll see what I can do. Follow me on social media, share this video with your friends, like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! Oh, the monkey wrapped his tail around the flagpole just to see his hole.